entered your destination.
Welcome back to Destination Pro Wrestling here on YouTube. My name is Tony, and you guys can follow me on Twitter at Tango with Tango. And now we have a Twitter for Destination PW at DESTPW. Link in the description below. And as always, here's a friendly reminder. We have launched Champions by DPW. It's a paid subscription service by YouTube, $4.99 a month. You guys subscribe to the channel, pay $5 a month. No contract. You could cancel anytime. But for that, I'm going to hook you guys up with some very cool rewards. More information in the link below. And let's talk about the big news of the day. AEW getting support from Vince McMahon. Yeah, I know it kind of sounds crazy, but guys, it is true. Vince McMahon has been very supportive of AEW, and very specifically more supportive of the idea of Jim Ross going to AEW. Now, we're also going to talk about another story today about Sasha Banks and her fallout from WWE at WrestleMania. Lots of big things happening today, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button. I know it sounds crazy, Vince McMahon being supportive of Jim Ross going to AEW, but honestly, I'm not that shocked. I'm not surprised by any means, because with this move, it shows that Vince McMahon could be civil and supportive of the idea of competition. Now, whether or not he truly is feeling supportive, only Vince McMahon will know. But according to an article that came out by hotnewhiphop.com, it sounds like this could be a very interesting thing. When speaking to Sirius XM Radio, Jim Ross had talked about his departure from WWE and signing with AEW. And one of the things that was brought up was, about his relationship with WWE. He even says this: "It's not so much Vince, because Vince has been very pro me making this move. He's been very positive about this. We've communicated a lot, probably more in the last month or so than we have ever. Unfortunately, my fault, but I'd like to make him proud. I learned a lot from working with the guy." Now, as you can imagine, this is a very interesting thing coming from Jim Ross, because Vince McMahon and Jim Ross obviously have a long history together. Now, I personally thought that Vince McMahon would be totally against this move, obviously based on what we've seen so far happening with Chris Jericho. But if you think about it, we could take a lot of things away from this interview on Sirius XM. One, Jim Ross and Vince McMahon have a long friendship and a long-term relationship. They've worked together a lot in history. And obviously, with that being said, it only makes Vince McMahon look a lot better if a guy like Jim Ross were to go to AEW and make it a big thing. Obviously, Jim Ross was not only in WWE, he has a long-standing history in the wrestling world, but he created and really did a lot of big things with WWE, to the point where if he did go to AEW, people are going to say that's what happens when you learn from Vince McMahon. And this is something that Jim Ross has also said before. He wants to make Vince McMahon proud because he's learned so much from him. And obviously here, going to AEW, not only is he serving on the 3-man commentary booth with Alex Marvez and Excalibur from PWG, but we also know that he will be an advisor for the company, and a very high-level advisor with that. So it's very interesting that Vince McMahon had said something even supportive of this. But at the end of the day, Vince McMahon is running his own business. WWE is a global phenomenon. We know all the big things that they're doing as a company. So it's really not shocking that Vince McMahon is not scared of competition. In fact, last time he had real competition, he bought them out. So, whether AEW and Vince McMahon, go head to head will be very interesting. But the guys at AEW have said for a very long time that they're not looking to compete with WWE. They're just simply looking to be an alternative. And if WWE can kind of keep the same mindset, then that's wonderful. At the end of this entire video, there's one thing I want you guys to take from this. There are alternatives. There are a lot of opportunities to watch wrestling. It doesn't matter which one you watch, because as long as you're supporting wrestling, the whole business grows. Now, if you're WWE, you might not want your superstars like Dean Ambrose or Sasha Banks going to AEW, but a guy like Jim Ross, who hasn't really been prominently used in the last few years with WWE in his contract, it sounds like it's a very easy departure. And that's a good thing not only for Jim Ross, because this gives him a chance to prove to everybody that he could be successful outside of WWE yet again. And this also is a good thing for WWE, because if he is successful, you could take a lot of those bragging rights in the sense of, hey, he came from us, that's why he's big time. And I just really want to know what Jim Ross is going to do here. Obviously, he's going to have a big role with AEW. I want to see what his approach is when it comes to developing the actual brand and the actual company itself. And if AEW can do a little bit opposite of Ring of Honor and Impact by taking shots at WWE on their television, I think a lot of people will watch this product. I think they will be happy with that, because nobody wants to see these wrestling companies take digs at each other when really everybody is on the same team. The industry needs growth, and in order to get respect from the mainstream audience, everybody has to be supporting pro wrestling. So I think that's one of the things I look forward to with AEW. If they're truly not trying to beat WWE and they are trying to be a successful alternative, I look forward to seeing them not taking those little subtle shots on TV. Now, with that being said, Triple H, Vince McMahon, we saw what happened at the Hall of Fame. Triple H made the comments about the pissant company. These things shouldn't be happening because WWE is big as well. You don't want to get the fans to turn on the WWE product, because then they look scared. So I get both sides of the argument, but to see that Vince McMahon is supportive of Jim Ross and supportive of this whole endeavor with AEW, it's pretty nice to see that. And it's a different side to Vince McMahon that a lot of people don't get to hear about. Now, obviously, we can't speak for Jim Ross, but the fact that he's been communicating pretty openly for Vince McMahon, or with Vince McMahon, shows that there is a lot of opportunity for growth in the business. And hey, you never know. Obviously, this TV deal is supposed to be pretty major, and by that default, it seems like pro wrestling in the United States, there is going to be one very big alternative to WWE. Impact and Ring of Honor just aren't getting the ratings that need to compete. So very, very interesting stuff coming from Jim Ross, but we do know that Vince is supportive of this company, and I think that's a great thing all in all. Now let's talk about the Sasha Banks situation. If you didn't know, multiple sources have come out. Pro Wrestling Sheet, Fightful, Dave Meltzer, pretty much everybody is just talking about this. Sasha Banks wanted to quit WWE after WrestleMania 35. In fact, she implied that she was quitting. So the idea of Sasha Banks quitting WWE, what we know right now is basically WWE changed the booking decision for them to lose the tag titles, and Boss 'n' Hug Connection obviously lost the titles to the Iconics, and that really set Sasha Banks off because she wasn't happy with the booking decision. Now, I gotta say, realistically, I don't like the idea of superstars walking out on the show because they're not being booked the way they want to be. At the end of every single show on WWE television, what you have to realize is that certain people are being pushed and certain people aren't. And if you're Sasha Banks, you can't be pushed all the time. There's been a lot of times where Sasha Banks held the women's title and she did a lot of things. There was a lot of attention on her. And right now, the attention is on Rousey, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte. And because of that, the women's tag team championship belts aren't that big of a deal. They exist, they're there, but it doesn't really matter who holds those belts because there's opportunities for all the women on the roster to thrive. And, you can't be the only star on the show. Now, I'm not a wrestler, so I don't know exactly how she feels. I don't know if I can relate to how she feels. But I know in this industry, everybody has to have a chance, and it looks like WWE did make the right decision by giving it to the Iconics. Now, Sasha Banks, Bayley not holding the titles is actually a good thing because as WWE tries to strengthen this division, there's room for growth. And, that just means, hey, you could be on Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. These belts will be defended everywhere. You got to keep going, making your name known. I personally would love to see them in heel form. I would love to see them as heels compete for these belts. I would love to see them attack females in the tag team division on a random show on any given night. You don't need to be the champions to do that. And I get why somebody might want to be on the spotlight all the time, but we as fans want more and variety. And we're getting this with Kofi Kingston, right? So let's kind of see what happens with WWE. Obviously, it sounds like they're giving her a little bit more time to rethink things. I'm not saying she's going to AEW, but I do think AEW's women's division is really sick. If there is a thing of where Sasha Banks could go, if there's any sort of opportunity for her to leave and WWE does grant her release, which, by the way, I don't think that's going to happen. But let's just say hypothetically it does happen. If Sasha Banks is given her release, she can go anywhere and she could succeed on the independent scene. But ultimately, I feel like she should stay put with WWE and really see what's going on. Give it more time. You know, we saw that happen with the Revival. The Revival got the tag titles. So that's what this event is being compared to. But obviously, I want to know what you guys think because, you know, Sasha Banks quitting WWE, it's not the first time she has been unpleasant on social media. She's mentioned things before about being unhappy. And look, you can't please them all. Sasha Banks has been in the spotlight a lot since being in WWE. There's a lot of women on this roster. If women's wrestling is going to continue to grow, WWE needs to highlight a lot of it. And that's why, honestly, I think it's kind of BS. But, you know, look, if you're not happy, you're not happy, try to leave. But obviously, WWE is the one who holds the contract, and they can kind of do whatever they want. So with that being said, I want to know what you guys think down below. Vince McMahon supportive of AEW, supportive of the move by Jim Ross, and Sasha Banks walking out on WWE. Guys, a lot of crazy things happening in pro wrestling. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. On our way to 20,000 subscribers. Huge milestone for the channel. Guys, it could happen sometime this week, maybe even tomorrow. So make sure you click that subscribe button. And thank you guys for showing support. I'll see you next time.